Star Citizen's latest technology has made its biggest fleet battle event truly next level. This is footage I recorded from the Xeno Threat event from the latest experimental build of the game. Now, I did test this event last year, but since then, two major things have changed within the game engine. Firstly, the player count is double what it used to be, so there's about 100 players in this battle compared to the 50 from before. And secondly, all spaceship wrecks now persist after combat, whether it's friendly or enemy. So as the battle continues, more and more spaceship debris is strewn across space, making for a truly epic and evolving environment, and certainly a more dangerous one. At one point, I collided with a random wing from a Corsair that was just floating in space. Luckily, it didn't seem to cause any major damage, but the dangers of fighting in a bigger battle quickly become more than just the ships who are shooting at you. And really, I don't know how, but somehow Star Citizen manages to consistently amaze me. The features and depth that are coming with the latest 3.18 update to this game are proving to be far more expansive and impactful than I would have imagined. Space is truly starting to feel lived in, with all the wrecks and trash left behind from players. Perhaps an old shipwreck you found is only hours old, or maybe it's been there for weeks. And once this patch goes live, you'll be finding wrecks that could be months old, with dead players inside, possibly with some really good loot on them. The nuances and full impact of this tech are unknown and will likely be further discovered in the coming months as players build stashes of goods or makeshift bases or even hideouts. Now for this event, I linked up with Avenger1, a well-known ace pilot and content creator within the community, and he was talking about how much he liked the look of his new armor, which he had found on a dead player at a mission site. And really, I just love that idea of another player's folly becoming treasure for someone else. This is what's known as emergent gameplay, and within the game industry, it's kind of the holy grail of increasing the fun and longevity of any project. It's when players start to create the content for the gameplay itself, and the world becomes a dynamic environment where things are happening that were never triggered or planned for by the development team. So anyway, let me walk you through what happened with this Xeno Threat event. And also, don't let me portray the experience incorrectly. It was buggy as hell. We ran into pretty much all the big bugs: elevators not working, getting stuck in the seats of your ship, not being able to repair or refuel, client crashes, events not triggering properly, and some weird stuff going on with crime stats where players were criminal but didn't really realize they were criminal due to maybe UI bugs. I really don't know. There's a pretty good reason that this build is still in the Wave 1 phase of testing. Anyway, on our first go around for the event, we started off in a Cutlass Blue with the intention of partaking in the main fleet battle for the event, but with a focus on taking down any hostile players. Xeno Threat is generally marketed as a fight against a massive AI force that's taking on the UEE, which needs backup, but players can show up with ill intentions, so we prioritize those players when possible. And one of our first engagements with another player was against a massive Redeemer. And luckily, this multi-crew ship was already under heavy fire from an Ares Inferno when we found it, as it's a pretty hard target to take down. Arguably one of the most powerful multi-crew PvP ships in the game. Lucky for us, it didn't seem to be fully crewed, and the Inferno was landing most of its shots. Now, one of the extremely cool features of this new experimental patch is the soft death mechanic. Now, when you take out a ship, there's a chance that it won't immediately explode, killing all the crew on board. They can go into a soft death state, the ship will come to a slow stop, and the crew can potentially make a last stand to protect whatever they have inside, try and escape. They have options at this point, and it's very interesting and adds a lot of opportunities for new types of gameplay, especially within the piracy realm. So at this point, we were debating whether or not we should EVA and go inside this disabled ship to take out the crew or look for what they had, but because there was still incoming fire, we weren't sure if other players were going to destroy the ship, and if we go inside while it gets destroyed, we'll get killed. Funny enough, though, a Drake Vulture comes and starts to salvage the ship, which is again a new feature of the 3.18 patch. So we're basically seeing all the main features occur in this one fight right here, which is just generally a really cool showcase. Now we're waiting to see if the crew survived or we're going to come out of the ship, and sure enough, somebody pops out the back. We switch to the gunner seat and take him out. Now this part is just one of those really fun, cool new things that you can do. So you take out the crew, I go into the back of the Cutlass, the cargo bay is open, and I tractor beam in this dead crew member. We can now loot the body, store his gear, see what he had on him, It's just like this awesome new evolution to the gameplay of like acquiring gear, looting stuff. This was a player that was decently kitted out. He had some good gear on him. We can now use it as backup in the cargo hold of our ship in case we lose anything or need to re-equip at some point. Now the Xeno Threat begins around Jericho Station, this UEE controlled military outpost, and in comes a damaged Javelin destroyer. This legendary ship will one day be player flyable, but for the moment it's simply AI controlled. And in the first leg of the mission, the UEE needs our help to resupply and repair this battle-damaged ship. So we have to go find the UEE's ambush supply convoy and go reclaim the supplies and bring them back to Jericho Station so they can use them to repair the Jav. Now these destroyed convoy ships are starfarers, and the cool part about this segment of the mission is that players can either park their ships near these disabled starfarers, go on board, kill enemy AI that are guarding the supplies, or you can fly around in space blowing up ships as sort of air cover. We opted for the latter this time. Last year I did go on board these starfarers, but things got a little precarious with some hostile enemy players, and I wanted to make sure that we could experience the whole event since it was so buggy and problematic to actually get out here in the first place. Now at this point in the battle, we're really just cleaning up light and heavy fighters for the most part, keeping the supply ships of our friendly players protected. And as we move on to the next stage of the battle, well, we ran into some server issues and basically just massive desync, where A1's flying around and I'm looking at our ship just drifting through space. So we had to relog and we came back in the Anvil Hurricane, a powerful 2-seat heavy fighter where most of the damage actually comes from the turret gunner. This allowed us to put a bigger emphasis on damage output while sacrificing the cargo hold of the Cutlass. Now the fleet battle is massive as it escalates with even bigger and bigger ships. Here we're taking out a Hammerhead, which is a good ship for fighter cover. These are ships that you can progress to in standard bounty missions, but seeing them in a bigger fleet battle is of course very cool, and watching it explode with its wreck remain in place is just a whole new dynamic. And then of course there are the Idrises. These ships are no slouch. They have good fighter cover, heavy cannons all over them, and a massive railgun on the front that can more or less one-shot, I think, just about any player flyable ship. So you definitely want to make sure that it doesn't target you with the main gun. And because these battles lasted so long, eventually A1 ran out of flares, and we may have taken a little bit too much damage from some incoming missiles. We had to bow out for a second and go repair. Honestly, the Hurricane's survivability is a bit ridiculous. But within no time, we were back and enjoying the spectacle of Xeno Threat. Star Citizen is a beautiful game. There's absolutely no denying that. And Xeno Threat is really the first taste that players get of larger scale fleet combat. Even if we can't fly the bigger capital class ships, it's still a lot of fun to see them in action. Now, unfortunately, the event that we were playing seemed to have been bugged out, and the Javelin never undocked from the station, so not only were we unable to complete the mission, but we didn't get to see the Javelin fight. Hopefully most of these issues will be ironed out by the time it hits live servers, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, Xeno Threat really is a special experience. It's the event that actually brought me back into Star Citizen last year. When people think massive open world space game, they of course associate giant fleet battles with it. And Xeno Threat is really one of the few ways to experience that right now. It gives me a lot of ideas about how larger fleet movements could be handled and managed, with Hammerheads providing fighter and missile cover. I can't wait to see the fleet dynamics evolve more once those ships become more flyable and CIG has to start ironing out the actual gameplay behind large-scale capital class combat. And seeing the same event that I did last year, but now with persistent entity streaming and the cool updates from patch 3.18, it does feel like a new experience. The wreckages from an Idris in space are truly breathtaking, and even the smaller ships just add this sort of graveyard-like feeling to these massive open battlefields that would otherwise just be a bunch of rocks in space. Now, I didn't stick around for after the battle, but I would imagine a lot of the salvage ships probably had a great time salvaging all these massive wrecks. Probably a decent amount of money to be made from here. And I was even talking with Avenger 1 saying there might even be a secondary battle after the main battle between players fighting over all the wrecks that are now littering the battlefield. Really cool concepts to think about that. If there's a giant in-game player event where tons of spaceships are destroyed, it's going to leave a lot of money on the table. Players are probably going to be fighting over that. Anyway, I could probably talk for hours about the possibilities and emergent opportunities created by all the cool stuff in 3.18, but I think I'm going to wrap the video up here. I hope this gives you guys a cool overview of large-scale fleet combat in Star Citizen at these relatively early stages of what that would be. And if you want to watch another Star Citizen video, check out this one here that I made talking about the most practical ships you can buy as a new player getting into the game and what they offer you. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.